According to the monitor I'm staring at right now, I am live officially here on the dreaded Facebook this fine Wednesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Me, Malcolm Tent. This Tent Talks Tunes. It is happening, guys. In spite of, as seems to be at least half the case, half the time, in spite of the extremely inferior streaming service, Logitech Mevo. Ooh, look at that. In spite of that being down yet again this week, I'm on. And it's happening. And as proof of that, Alan Versapellis is in the house right now. Number one, as he usually is. Good to see you, Alan. Hope you're making lots of noise, lots of rock and roll, and that it is crunchy and distorted as we have become accustomed to. Mike Lesser from Vancouver, BC, number two in the house that I know of. I see a few other people are tuned in, but you guys are the ones who've chimed in earliest. Now, I'm going to have to use my cell phone as the monitor to take a look at the comments without squinting too hard. People who are watching the rerun on my YouTube channel might wonder what's going on here. Make sure I'm going on live here. My pal Adam Zisser made a comment about the cassette deck array that I have, that I used as the teaser for tonight's episode of Tent Talks Tunes. And that is correct. I'm using a cassette deck from him in the greater environs of Atlanta, and I've squeezed out quite a few products on the cassette format using his tape deck, so thank you, Adam, for that. It is being worked almost to death, the way a cassette deck is supposed to be. What's Mike Lesser got to say? TPOS CEO, Certified Eccentric Operator. I will take that very happily. That is a fine, fine title. And I'll hoist my jug and take a sip of hickory tap to that. The pause that refreshes. So yeah, we got the software problems basically worked out, which means I'm on my cheap camera, which means I can't be waving things in front of the lens, otherwise it'll go all out of focus. But that's okay. We shall overcome. This is, as I've said so many times, done in the spirit of cable TV of the 1970s and 1980s. And I wonder if cable TV is still a thing. I do hope so. If it isn't, here's a pretty reasonable facsimile of it. We're going live. Anything can happen. Any disaster could strike at any moment. Any inspiration could strike at any moment. We could go in any direction. Nobody knows what's going to happen for the next little while. Got my backdrop. Made out of only the finest scrap lumber and old bed sheets. Sitting in my chair, got the cheap-ass camera. We're doing it, kids. We are doing it. And I see that Terry Myers is in the house. He says we're getting a lot of lag. Does that mean that is the picture skipping? Is it hiccuping? What's going on with the technological end of this? Am I audible at all? I can't really tell because it looks okay going out on my computer screen, but I don't know what everybody's seeing out there in the real world. I'm just going to assume that everything's okay and hope for the best. If anything catastrophic is happening, leave a comment and let me know, and I'll do what I can. Terry Myers says I'm cutting in and out. Is anybody else noticing that? Am I cutting in and out? Let me know, because if I have to reboot, in Canada I'm looking good. I think, Terry, you might be suffering from the same crappy North Carolina internet that I am. I will absolutely say that when I moved to North Carolina from Connecticut, the quality of the internet went straight down. I've had more interruptions, glitches, and dropped broadcasts since moving here than I ever did in Connecticut. Grant Den out there in the great Midwest says everything's cool. My old pal John Murray in Connecticut says everything's cool there. All right, we're just going to chalk it up to North Carolina. I've lived here now for almost exactly 1 year, and I guess this is what I get. serves me right. Hey, Per Lundell in Sweden. He's getting it okay. How come I can transmit to all corners of the globe, but not my new state? What is going on? What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. We're going to take a look at the bulletin board here. We have a couple events coming up. Only one that I've got a flyer for, and that is February 28th at the Gastonia Conference Center. Yes, it's the Carolina Sound Record and Music Expo. It's another record show in Gastonia. And John Adams says we're good in Raleigh. John Adam, I have not seen or heard or talked to you in forever, man. Where you been? John Adam, where you been? We ain't seen you at the shows. I haven't seen you on the social media. What's going on, man? All well? Please let me know and let the people know. We all need some information about the current status of John Adam. Good guy, John Adam. Salute. Good to have you on board. So, yeah. Gastonia, February 28th, big old record show. Big old me is going to be set up with two big old tables full of big old records, tapes, CDs, TPOS product. Oh, yes. Yes, 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 yes. As much as I do sell online, using, of course, Discogs, eBay, and Bandcamp, I love selling in person. Getting to hang out with the people, talk to the people, commiserate with the people, josh and jive with the people, shuck and huck with the people. In person, boots on the ground, real life interaction is where it's at. So if you want to partake of some of that, in the tradition of the oldest gathering place in human culture, which is the market, Gastonia, February 28th at the Convention Center, Conference Center, whatever kind of center it is. It's a center, you know? I'll be there. Many, many other dealers will be there. It should be really cool. This mysterious glyph, we'll address that in a minute. Other events coming up that I don't have printed advertisements for, March 14th, I will be playing a show in Bristol, Tennessee with my pal and newly minted TPOS recording artist, Moose Roberts. Very excited about that. And also wigged out about the concert debut of TPOS recording artist Pissy Chrissy. This is going to be a riotous earthquake of raw emotion, punk rock, maybe even hardcore, maybe even just some good old-fashioned porch-sitting country music. Could be any or none of the above. The only way to find out is to go to Bristol, Tennessee on March 14th. And I'll be finding out with you. Should be exciting. Hope to have a flyer for that soon. And of course, May 2nd, the Danbury Record and CD Expo, the record show that I promote in Connecticut and that I travel to Danbury twice a year to be a part of. So that's what's coming up. The mailbox, which we always like to check, P.O. Box 173, Newton, North Carolina, 28658, has been quite empty the last week. Just saying. I can't do show and tell of the mail if there ain't no mail. Is that a hint? Yeah, it's a hint. If any of you people like the show and tell with the mail, I need something in the mailbox. P.O. Box 173, Newton, North Carolina, 28658. For that reason, and also to quote the great James Brown, I'm a greedy man. Greedy man. I love stuff. But I'm also a generous man because I love to send things to people in exchange. And in fact, Murray Gelman, if you're watching right now, and all Tent Talks Tunes viewers who might recall a couple of weeks ago, my main man Murray sent me a really awesome care package, including a nice stack of Marvel comics from the 1970s. Great titles, a lot of them written by Steve Gerber, who is my favorite comic book writer of all time. For Marvel, he wrote The Defenders, Omega the Unknown. He created Howard the Duck. He got to start writing for the Submariner. Really great surrealistic comic book writing with some very odd and unusual emotional twists and turns and themes. So I've made it my lifetime goal to get the complete Steve Gerber, which may or may not be possible, but Murray Gell-Mann is helping me in that quest. And in exchange, I'm sending Murray Gell-Mann some really cool recordings I've made over the years of his bands, amongst them Bad Dream House and Kitty Badass. So Murray, if you're watching, I want you to know that I have exhumed the old Malcolm Tent Field Unit cassette archive. It is practically in my hands. It is organized. It's just a matter of going through all these tapes and finding the tapes in question with the bands in question. I am working on it. It is happening. I will drink a toast to me for my due diligence and my workaholic tendencies. Terry Myers in North Carolina says everything looks better now after he restarted. John Adams says he's doing good, dropped off Facebook for the most part. Yep. Trust me, you weren't missing much unless you were paying attention to me. Then you were missing a lot. But that's okay. As far as Tent Talks Tunes goes, I got my YouTube channel. Take a look at it. Catch up on those reruns. Like, subscribe. You know the drill. You know the drill. John Murray says 2 great bands. I would assume in reference to Kitty Badass and Bad Dream House. Yes, they were great Connecticut punk rock with some savage pop hooks. Love those 2 bands. So it's going to be a real pleasure to dig out those cassettes and start digitizing them because I get to listen to them again. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. All right, well, that was the preamble. We looked at the bulletin board. We lamented the state of the mailbox. Why don't you say we do some tunes, do some talking, do some tenting right here live on the dreaded Facebook. So yeah, it's only natural that my record label TPOS is going to come up in conversation because that's what I do. It's what I do. Amongst other things such as selling at record shows, digitizing audio for people, anything relating to music, playing gigs, anything that I can do, if it relates to music and the creation and dissemination thereof, I will. So TPOS looms large in my life. It's a daily part of my existence. Not even daily, minutely, hourly, secondly, it's always there. As I'm sitting here in Tent Talks Tunes Studios, I'm looking at TPOS business everywhere. To my left, I've got the stack of cassette decks that I pictured earlier for the Facebook teaser that I make cassettes on. Next to that's a couple of 8-track recorders that I make 8 tracks on. Next to that is a cassette CD duplicator, high-speed duplicator. Next to that is a reel-to-reel recorder. This is what I have in the living room of my home. I don't walk into the living room and see, a chandelier or a painting of a bowl of vegetables. I see sound duplicating equipment. And I see neatly organized, really, I swear, neatly organized stacks of blank CDs, cassettes, cassette inserts, blank tapes. I mean, this is it. This is what I do. When I had my record store, I referred to it as TTT, which is Total Trash Existence. I could still refer to it as TTE, as Total TPOS Existence. That's what I that's what I live, that's what I do. In Indian culture, they would say that I am a record label mogul. In that case, it is true. That's at least a part of my fundamental makeup. And I will drink a toast to that. Running a record label is so much fun. It is so much fun. I love doing it. Bit of history, just a little bit, because I have talked about this in depth on Tent Talks Tunes, and the episodes are archived on my YouTube channel. Basic story was I co-founded this record label in 1984 with Big Santo, who was the lead singer of Broken Talent. Broken Talent was the first ever functioning, truly gigging band I was ever in. We were South Florida. We were punk as a skunk. Didn't know what we were doing. It wasn't going to stop us. We just went ahead and did it anyway. And so we started our very humble little band, and it was Santo's idea to put out a record. Why? Because if you have a record, it's easier to get gigs. All right, it made sense to me. I certainly could not argue with that logic. And that's really it. That's the only reason why we put out our first record, was to get gigs, to have a calling card. And I certainly wasn't thinking in any terms of long-term goals. I did not have a business plan. I did not have a master blueprint. All I had was the assumption that if putting out one record was this much fun, why not continue doing it? That's really just about it. It just didn't seem to make any sense to stop doing it. And it was a lot of fun doing it. So I just kept doing it. Now wait a minute, my old compadre Grant Den, who was right there at the very ground level of the formation of Broken Talent, he's got a question. He says, what? The Black Sabbath cover band wasn't your first? Well, kinda. I mean, we never really gigged out. The first, okay, if you want to be super duper technical, the first band I was ever in at all was a Black Sabbath record, quote, unquote, a Black Sabbath cover band. See, I got it right. A Black Sabbath cover band called Hand of Doom. And basically, we practiced a lot, and we practiced a lot. And my memory is not 100% accurate on this, but I don't think that we actually played any gigs. And if we did, I think it was after the formation of Broken Talent. That is why I'm extremely grateful that I have my website, malcolmtent.net, to refer to. Because I have listed on malcolmtent.net every single gig I've ever played from 1983 to the present. So where my memory fails, the performance log on malcolmtent.net will succeed. Now let's see. Grant Den says, yes, we did play it at a park. I remember that, Palm Springs North Park, but I kind of really want to say that was after Broken Talent. So Grant, maybe you can solve the problem if you go to my website, malcolmtent.net, and click on the performance log link. It'll show the correct order, because I started writing that performance log years and years and years and years ago when the memories were fresher and I had primary source materials to work with. So that's accurate. My memory's not accurate. So Grant, if you're so inclined and if you're in the mood, please do that and then post the results, because now I'm curious. I'm really curious. Microscopic Joe is tuned in. He says, Destructo Rock. Damn right. Damn right, little bitty Joe. Damn right. Anyway, I digress. We put out a record because we needed a calling card. And I just figured, why not keep doing it? And that's just how the label evolved, you know. Various parties came and went. People lost interest. People moved away. And it was just kind of like, I was the only guy who was still doing it. Then I moved to Connecticut in 1986 and just kept doing it. So we're talking about 42 years now of just doing it. And according to my most recent tabulations made this morning, the TPOS catalog, which started with TPOS number 001, the Broken Talent 7-inch, is now up to TPOS number 286. 286 releases on TPOS. And here, loitering around my ankles, is the star of TPOS number 263, Harry the Cat, making his obligatory appearance here on Tent Talks Tunes, with those gleaming yellow eyes and his one fang and his 1.5 ears. Say hi. Hi. He hates it when I do that. Yes. TPOS recording artist Harry the Cat, right here live on Tent Talks Tunes. So yeah, I'm up to 286 releases. And I've got a lot of them on deck to come out in the year of 2026. And I might as well start talking to you people about these things, because I'm very excited about it. I love releasing records and tapes and CDs and cassettes and 8-tracks and reel-to-reels. I love the formats. I love editing these things. I love putting the artwork together. I love working with the artists to shape and sculpt and mold the final release. It's very, very satisfying. In fact, I'm going to say that the creative part of it is the most satisfying. And I've talked to my boss at Anti-Scene, Mr. Jeff Clayton. And if you want to catch his web stream, tune on alternate Tuesdays on the Anti-Scene official Facebook page for his show, Break On Through, which is very similar to what I do, but with his spin on it. Anyway, we were talking about releasing stuff, and we both agreed that the joy is in the creation of the product. And that when the product is actually in hand, and you look at it, it's almost anticlimactic. It's like, oh, okay, it's done. Okay, what next? That's kind of how it goes. And maybe that's one of the things that drives me to keep releasing stuff, because I'm always interested in what I can do now, what I can do next. So what have I been working on today? Well, TPOS number 286 has something to do with this little band right here, and I'm going to try to do this without disturbing Harry the Cat, because as we know, it all is about Harry, and it's about not disturbing the cat. We know that. We know that. I think I can do it. TPOS number 286 is directly related to this band right here, a group you might have heard of. They're called the Monkees. Yes, indeedy do. When I was a wee lad, I used to watch the Monkees every day. I think it was on Channel 6 in Miami. I forget. Probably Channel 6, because they showed the reruns. I wasn't old enough to catch the Monkees when they were on live Saturday mornings, but I was able to catch the reruns every day on Channel 6. And I remember so clearly seeing their apparently decapitated heads on the end credits, because they would show, you know, the cutout face and neck of each member of the band in the corner of the screen while the credits rolled. I remember seeing every single one of them, and I, for some reason, remember specifically this guy right here, Peter Tork. Peter Tork. I think it was because of the silly grin that he had on his face. I also remember Mike Nesmith's stocking cap. But Peter Tork, I remember him very clearly. So the Monkees were always a part of the fabric of my cultural awareness, of my musical awakening. Always knew about the Monkees. Always loved them, of course. So fast forward many, many years. I'm going to guess about 23. Make that 33. We're talking about approximately 1968 to approximately 2001. In fact, specifically 2001. So about 33 years. My good friend Jen, who is quite possibly the world's biggest Monkees fan, gave me a call one day and said, okay, you know what we're doing next week? I said, no, what are we doing? She said, we are going to see Peter Tork and James Lee Stanley play at the Town Crier in Pawling, New York. I said, we are? She said, yes, we are. I said, why? And I could hear the exasperation in her voice. Because they're awesome, that's why. And Peter Tork, you know, was in the Monkees, you know, and he's great, and he's playing with James Lee Stanley at the Town Crier, just down the road. We're going. I said, okay, we're going. Who am I to argue? Jen is also the one who gets me to see movies, at least when I lived in Connecticut. She was the one who would get me to see movies, because I'm not a movie watcher. I'm not a movie goer. And Jen was always aghast when a certain movie would come up in conversation, and I had to let it drop that I'd never seen it. So my mandate then was to go over to her house with her husband Greg and sit down and watch said movie. And that's how I ended up watching a lot of really good movies I never would have known about. These days that job belongs to Pissy Chrissy, because she is the exact same way. We'll be talking and the name of a movie will come up and I'll have to say I've never seen that one, and she's just like, you gotta be kidding me. What are y'all, stupid? We're gonna watch this movie. So I've seen a lot of great movies that way. Anyway, I digress. This is not a movie. This is a real-life gig at the Town Crier in Pawling, New York. A really cool, intimate venue. They have table seating, they serve dinner, and world-class entertainment. I am 98.6% sure that the place is now called Daryl's Place. Daryl as in Daryl Hall. Daryl Hall as in Daryl Hall and John Oates. Pretty cool. Whatever the name was, they could always draw top shelf talent because of the location. Pawling, New York was just close enough to New York City, kind of on the way between New York and Boston, close enough to Woodstock. You know, like all the cultural hotspots around there were accessible from Pawling. So you had all kinds of people traveling through and touring through. Nick Stone's tuned in. Hey, Nick. So, okay, Peter Tork and James Lee Stanley. Before we go, Jen says, oh, by the way, bring your taping gear because they're taper friendly. Music to my delicate shell-like ears. Because as we have discussed on Tent Talks Tunes, on an episode archived on my YouTube channel, my motto is live to tape, tape to live. I love and I live to record live concerts in the field. Love it. And I like it even better when the artists are taper friendly. She said, yeah, come on down and tape it. They're taper friendly, no problem. I was like, great. So we, pile into the car and drive to Pawling and, eat I forget, chicken McNugget dinner or something like that, whatever they were serving. And, I was vegetarian at the time, so I'm sure I had a plate of white rice and lettuce, something like that. Ate, and then here come Peter Tork and James Lee Stanley. And, I had my apparatus set up. So they start playing, I'm recording, and at some point, and it wasn't me, there was a guy videotaping, and James Lee Stanley looks at the guy and says, hey, are you videotaping? The guy says, yeah. James Lee Stanley says, well, if you're videotaping, I have a request. What's that? The request is if you make copies of that videotape and sell them to your friends and you make money, and you can sort of feel the tension rising in the mind of the guy with the video camera. Call our record company and just tell us how you were able to do it. Big laugh, tension diffused, no problem. And it was a great show. We went to go see Peter Tork and James Lee Stanley at least once after that, maybe twice. And they made the same announcement from the stage. He said, look, you can record it, you can sell it, do whatever you want. We don't care. And so for the 25 years in the interim, I always had it in the back of my mind, well, why don't I just go ahead and put out the Peter Tork and James Lee Stanley recording I made that night on TPOS? Why not? They said I could. They said I could sell it. I've got it on tape. I have permission to do it. on tape from the mouths of the artists themselves. Why don't I do it? Well, I'll tell you guys. The answer is this. After I hydrate and say goodbye to Harry. The answer is that I work in mysterious ways. I work in mysterious ways. And I was having a talk with my mom about this. Ma, if you're watching, hey. She and I were just talking about the way we do things. And we both agreed and came to the realization that we each do things the same way. We don't do anything of our own volition until we're ready to do it. And there's no logic to it. There's no reason to it. There's no reason in the world why I couldn't have put out the Peter Tork, James Lee Stanley recordings 25 years ago. I just didn't feel like doing it. I don't know. The moment wasn't right. The stars weren't lined up. The zodiac was in the wrong array. You know, the moon was in the wrong house. I was in a bad mood. I don't know. There's just no reason. I just wasn't in the mood to do it. And what happens is that I'll wake up in the morning usually. And yes, those of you who know me will say, what do you mean morning? Don't you mean afternoon? Ha, ha, ha. Whatever. I'll wake up in the morning and stretch and yawn and think, what am I going to do today? I'm going to put together that Peter Tork, James Lee Stanley master tape and get it out. That's it. The idea just has to strike me, and I have to say, okay, I'm doing it now. And the funny thing is, it was almost 25 years to the day. The show that I am going to release was recorded January 14th of 2001. And the inspiration hit me, I think, like on January 16th of this year. So, I don't know, maybe it just took 25 years for the idea to gestate properly and me to get the motivation to do it. So today I spent the first couple hours of my morning, afternoon, whatever, editing the Peter Tork and James Lee Stanley tape for release. And the performance was every good as I remembered it. They were funny, they were engaging. Each one is a top-shelf musician and songwriter. Because of their taper-friendly policy, the recording sounds fantastic. And in fact, the second part sounds even better than the first part. Because if I remember correctly, we got there, I think, pretty close to stage time. Or what we thought was stage time. And the house is full, you know, pretty good house there, a lot of people there. And I didn't really have time to set my mics up in the most perfect position. I got a pretty good position, just not perfect. So the first part of the set was recorded ever so slightly jury-rigged. Still sounds really good, but like maybe 9 out of 10. So James Lee Stanley plays a solo set. Peter Tork tag teams him and plays his solo set. They have an intermission, and then they both do a set in tandem. So during the intermission, I was able to take my mics and place them right on stage. If I remember correctly, I had one on the stage to pick up the live guitars, and I had one aimed directly at the house PA to get mainly the vocals. And the second set, 10 out of 10. If the first set was 9 out of 10, second set was 10 out of 10. And I am going to be really stoked to have Peter Tork and James Lee Stanley on my label. TPOS catalog number 286. And Jen, if you're watching, watch out, because I'll be putting the finger on you fairly soon to get some photos and maybe some reminiscences from that night. Sherry, if you're out there, same goes for you. You guys were there. Be prepared to contribute. Right on. Yes. TPOS number 286. Wow. Now, just to show you how wild, woolly, wacky, and haphazard my methodology is, the other release I worked on today was TPOS number... Any guesses? I was working on number 286, what other number would I have been working on? What number in the TPOS catalog might I have been thinking of putting out and acting on? Well, I'll tell you. TPOS number 195. That shows you how ridiculous the gap can be sometimes. I conceived of TPOS number 195, I believe, around 2011, 2012. And TPOS number 195 is going to be a release, the third on TPOS. John Murray gets 285. John, that was too logical. I can't do logic. I just can't. 195 is going to be released by one of the great American folk artists and one of my favorite artists of all time. And I have one of his works right here, the Reverend Howard Finster. Yes, the Reverend Howard Finster from Summerville, Georgia. The man of visions from other worlds, from beyond the light of the sun. The fundamentalist Southern Baptist preacher who, incidentally, has been to other worlds from beyond the light of our sun and has seen the spaceships that they travel in. He has seen the angels that fly through the heavens every second of every day. He has seen the houses they live in, the towers they live in, the strange creatures that roam other planets. Yes, the Reverend Howard Finster. And as Grant Den pointed out, REM. He did the album cover for their second album, Reckoning. And they have a picture of his garden, Paradise Gardens of Summerville, Georgia, on the back of one of their album covers. I forget which one it is. Might have been Document. But Howard Finster, wonderful. He did the Talking Heads album cover for Little Creatures, which is where I first saw his work. Just wonderful, wonderful, truly visionary. You can call it whatever you want. Visionary, naive, primitive, folk art. This guy is the real deal. And I was very fortunate to visit the Reverend Howard Finster at Paradise Gardens a number of times over the years. And in his art gallery and gift shop, he quite often had cassettes of his music and of his sermons. So I would always buy one of those cassettes. And lo and behold, listening to the first one I ever bought, he kind of did the same thing that Peter Tork and James Lee Stanley did. He said, if you want to copy my tapes and sell them, go right ahead. Use the money. Use it so that you can build a garden, or you can do art, or that you can do whatever you want with it. You know, and get my message out as well. He says it right there. Not only that, I was going through a tape recording of a conversation that I had with him in 1995, the last time I visited him. And we had an entire conversation about me making his tapes and selling them at my store. And he said, well, you know, you can buy some of this. And, you know, he was just like really, he was just very much into the idea. He loved the idea of his stuff getting out there. And he was very proactive about people bettering themselves using his materials. He was all for it. So on that last visit with him in 1995, I bought a cassette of his called A Little of Many Songs. And it's it's kind of like his work. It's done in a completely primitive, untrained, unschooled fashion. He apparently had a whole bunch of cassettes of him singing old traditional hymnals, a few songs that he wrote, him making animal sounds and bird calls and the sounds of these creatures from other planets. Really amazing audio recordings. And so what he would do is take a desktop cassette recorder, like the kind you would buy at Sears or J.C. Penney, or the type of retro cassette recorders they sell now on eBay. You know, it's the kind that you lay flat on a desk. It's got a built-in microphone. So apparently he had a couple of these. He used one of them to play back his tapes, and he used the other one to record onto a compilation tape. He was using the microphone from this one desk tape recorder held up to the speaker of another one. And you can hear him pressing the stop button and the start button. And, you know, he talks into the other one to tell you what's going on. Completely crude, lo-fi, primitive, and wonderful. I mean, it's really a thing of beauty. It's like you're literally entering his world when you listen to this thing. So that was 1995, kind of the same deal. I've been stewing on it ever since then. And one of the problems that I had with releasing this thing was that the sides were timed out very strangely on his original cassette. One side was like 21 minutes long. The other side was like 12 minutes long. So it's 33 minutes of stuff broken up unevenly. And some of the songs that he did on side one of the cassette were like these very long medleys. So there was no way to break it up logically. And so I just spent all this time trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do with this and how to make it manufacturable, until it finally occurred to me, duh, Malcolm Tent, you recorded 90 minutes of conversation with him on that last visit. Why don't you just condense that down into the more interesting parts and use that to fill up a 60-minute tape? Done, done, and done. That's what I did yesterday. I went through this really, really nice tape recording I made of a conversation with Howard Finster and cut out, you know, there's a lot of just idle chit chat and pauses and stuff like that and talking about things that weren't really interesting to anybody. But I got another like 24, 25 minutes of pretty interesting conversation with Howard Finster, tracked it out. And so that's going to be on TPOS number 195, the Reverend Howard Finster, A Little of Many Songs. And I was so inspired that I not only made the master tape, but I started putting together the artwork for it, the cassette insert. So, provided the inspiration remains at a crest for me, we should be seeing that pretty soon on TPOS. Oh yeah. Let's drink a little bit more of this great hickory tap water. Well, might as well address the 800-pound flyer that's hanging on the bulletin board here, and that's this very strange, enigmatic, and mysterious glyph. What is that? What is that? I did say earlier that we would address it. And now we're gonna talk about the glyph right here on Ted Talks Tunes. This started with this. This is TPOS number 200. The Malcolm Tent Power Duo featuring David Kendrick. 2 smooth noodle maps. David Kendrick, short resume for David Kendrick, drummer for Sparks, drummer for Devo, drummer and songwriter for Gleaming Spires, drummer and songwriter for Bates Motel, drummer and songwriter for Empire of Fun, and a very talented short story writer in his own right. Way back when, I asked if he would drum behind me at a Devo fan gathering. He said yes. I, of course, recorded it. I said, David, do you mind if I release it? He said no. Will you give me a copy? I said yes. So that's TPS number 200 of me and him doing 2 songs from the album he performed on, Smooth Noodle Maps. 1 of 3 he performed on. A crown jewel for Malcolm Tent. And I just thought it was very appropriate to make the 200th TPOS release something that was very special to me. You know why? Because I'm good enough, I deserve it, And gosh darn it, people like me. People like me. Yeah. But that was just the beginning. I had it also in the back of my mind for a very long time that we had only kind of touched upon the surface of what we could do, myself and David Kendrick. Because David Kendrick is a phenomenal drummer. I have had the great fortune of working with some seriously world-class drummers who can play the big stage anytime they want. David Kendrick is one of them. And I wanted to do more with him because the guy's a great drummer. Heck of a nice guy, too. So the idea just kind of stewed and churned and sort of masticated and agitated and procrastinated until a couple of years ago when I thought, you know what? Not only am I lucky enough to have worked with some of the best drummers on planet Earth, but I'm also very, very lucky to have an incredible pool of musicians that I can work with on various projects, like all over the world. You know, if I need some hot traditional Irish fiddle music, I can call my friend Kieran in Leeds, England. If I want, I don't know, some weird avant-garde noise, I can call some of my friends in Mexico who do pure noise. You know, I know people everywhere. And especially now with the internet and file uploading and file sharing, you can actually collaborate with folks like that all over the world. But in this case, I wanted it to be kind of like the record show. I wanted boots on the ground, real life, face-to-face collaboration. What better way to do that than to put a band together based around David Kendrick's resume? So I pitched it to him and said, David, for Devotional 2025, let's put a band together where we will play songs by Sparks, Devo, Gleaming Spires, Empire of Fun. I think that's it. We had to go a little bit heavier on the Devo songs, obviously, because there's a Devo fan gathering. But let's just play songs from your catalog, and let's put a band together and do it, and let's just rock them. He said, sure. So I was able to call some friends of mine in Ohio, including the great Poopy Necropond of Sockeye and the Wheelchair Full of Old Men label, my old pal Jeff Hardy from Akron's Proudest Citizens, CD Truth, and Mistletoe, the world's most dangerous Christmas band, and Carolyn Vaughn, who has worked with Poopy on a number of projects, and everybody was on board for this. So we got together, we rehearsed twice with David, played a show with David, got the job done, over and out. Except to quote Frank Zappa when he said, I'm not satisfied. I wasn't satisfied with that. Because 2 rehearsals and 1 gig do not optimize the potential of a band. Not even close. The reaction from the crowd at Devotional was very positive. I had a lot of people say that David Kendrick's Quintophrenia, which by the name is the band, David Kendrick's Quintophrenia, people said, you guys were the best, you were the highlight of the whole event, and you guys were rocking, you were awesome. Thank you, I accept that with all humility and gratitude. Thank you. It means a lot, it really does. But being the performer, and anybody who's been on stage can tell you this. Maybe John Murray knows what I'm talking about. Maybe Grant Den knows what I'm talking about. Maybe Terry Myers knows what I'm talking about. If you're on the stage, the only thing that you hear are the mistakes. The only thing you can concentrate on are the flubs. All you can be aware of is what went wrong. So people are saying, yeah, you guys were great, but I'm thinking, yeah, but you know that transition into the third chorus of Life Out on the Lawn was rough, man. We almost dropped it, you know, and I know I played a bum note during Spin the Wheel, and my vocals were flat. You know, that's all that we do. That's all that we do. Grant Den says it right there. He is his own worst critic. But I figure if I'm going to be my own worst critic and not be able to have absolutely fond, pleasant memories of my performance at Devotional, I can make something of it. I can make something of it. Clinton Zilla says, very hypercritical of a performance. It's true. It's true. I'll make some real lemonade out of these freshly squeezed lemons. Once again, it gets back to my mania for recording everything. We've talked about my conversation with Howard Finster that I recorded. We're talking about the Peter Tork, James Lee Stanley concert that I recorded. Now we're going to talk about the rehearsals that I recorded with David Kendrick's Quintophrynia. This is not false humility. This is not hypercriticism, but simply a fact that out of all the people gathered in the basement on those fateful days and gathered on the stage in Cleveland, Ohio on the fateful day, the only player who did not noticeably flub was David Kendrick playing the drums. And if you listen very carefully, and if you're super educated about the songs we played, you would notice a couple of rough patches here and there. But the casual observer would never know. If you don't have a hypercritical ear, you would never know. So I was able to take his drum tracks, isolate them, and say to the fellow members of David Kendrick's Quintophrynia, which is D, K, Q, get it. And say, guys, let's build an album around this. Let's take these basically flawless drum tracks and record our parts on top of them and make an album. So we can hear these songs played by us without any regrets, without any quibbles, without any hypercriticism. Let's make a souvenir of this gig that we can really, really enjoy. All of us. Poopy said yes. Carolyn said yes. Jeff Hardy said yes. And I really hope Dave is not watching because I want to surprise him with this. So, shh, it's supposed to be a surprise. Shh. Mum's the word. Mum's the word. Anyway, I should say this a lot quieter now. I'm trying to keep a secret. I was talking to Jeff today, and the rough mixes are underway. He sent me a couple, and they sound great. They sound really good. When this thing is done, we're going to have a souvenir of David Kendrick's Quintophrynia that we could all listen to and crank really loud on the stereo and enjoy without any remorse. And I think he's going to like it when he hears it. I really do. I really think he's going to like it. So this is between us, okay? This is just between us. That's going to be out on TPOS this year in time for Devotional, if all goes well. Haven't given it a catalog number yet. I might as well. How about 287? Sounds good. TPOS 287. David Kendrick's Quintophrynia. Oh, yes. And I got one more I want to tell you guys about. TPOS's extremely busy upcoming release schedule. And let me tell you also, there's more than just this. There's plenty more than just this. These are the ones that just had the most accessible materials at hand when I was getting ready for the show tonight. I've talked about this one a little bit before. Talked about this guy a little bit before. Yes, Tiny Tim. He should need no explanation. And since he shouldn't, there will be none. Suffice to say that I have already released 2 Tiny Tim titles on TPOS. Very alliterative. 2 Tiny Tim titles on TPOS. One, the Prisoner of Love album. The other, a split 7-inch between him and his protege, Isidore Fertel. If you want to hear some genuinely bizarre, otherworldly outlier performances by Isidore Fertel, go to the TPOS Bandcamp and check it out. I guarantee you never heard anything like Isidore Fertel. And the Tiny Tim tracks are pretty cool too. Anyway, through the efforts of a super cool dude named Justin Martell, who is the executor of Tiny Tim's estate, I have been allowed access to unreleased Tiny Tim stuff. Because Justin is more into the streaming end of things, I am more into the physical media end of things. So, guess what? I've got 2 Tiny Tim titles on TPOS. I just ran out of T's. Scheduled for release this year. One of them just came to me less than a month ago. It's a session of him and the New York City guitar player, and I hope I pronounce his name right, Harv Mann. I don't know, it's Harv, Harvey, Harvey, Harva Mann. Let's just say that. A really cool informal session of Tiny Tim and Harva Mann just singing songs, playing songs, having a good old time, doing duets. I've never heard anything like it before. I've never heard Tiny Tim duet with anybody like that. It's a really great, fun, informal session. Lasts about an hour. Some of it has come out as streaming. As streaming? I guess you could say that. As a streaming release. About half of it has never been heard before. So, TPOS number whatever, I lost track, is going to be a cassette and CD of the Tiny Tim, Harva Mann duet sessions. All acoustic, all fun. It's going to be called Tiny Tim After Midnight. Very excited about that. The other one I'm excited about is an album that we're going to call, and this is Justin's idea, Love Potion 1979. And it is a full-fledged, bona fide, unheard, unreleased, previously unknown, full-length album that Tiny recorded in 1979. In 1979, he did a single called Tiptoe to the Gas Pumps. The B-side was a song called The Hickey on Your Neck. It came out on a subsidiary of TK Records, which was Casey and the Sunshine Band's label. Sold a lot of copies. And there's going to be an album to follow it up. But the album never happened. And if you do just a little bit of research on Tiny Tim, you'll see that his very, very long and incredibly productive career is littered with unreleased projects. Music that was recorded for intent to come out, but never did. Usually because he shot himself in the foot. And I don't know the story behind Love Potion 1979. I know that Justin's going to write liner notes for it. And if anybody knows, he does. I can't wait to read the liner notes. But I was actually put in charge of mixing the darn thing. The album was never even mixed. The 2 songs that came out as a single were, but not the rest of the album. So, what an experience that is, to have actual genuine stems, multi-tracks if you will, of a Tiny Tim album that no one's ever heard. And it's my job to assemble them, to mix them into a coherent, releasable album. That's pretty effing cool, man. That's really cool. And work on that has been going in fits and starts for several years now. You know, for the reasons I mentioned before, that I only work when I'm inspired, and of course real life gets in the way sometimes. But finally, within the last 6 months or so, Justin Martell sent me a message and said, hey, are we going to do this album or not? And I said, yeah, you're right. We got to do it. He took out the pointed stick and jabbed it through the bars of my cage and kind of got me going there. So he prodded. It's happening. He had some ideas for parts he wanted. He wanted to hear some horn parts, some saxophone. So I contracted the players to do it. Christy, if you're out there, hello, can't wait to hear your sax parts. And just took suggestions on how it should sound. And I actually got the whole blessed thing now mixed and sequenced. And all we're waiting right now on now are the saxophone parts. And once those are delivered, I can mix them. And then when Justin does the cover art and the liner notes, because that's his department, you're going to see on TPOS Love Potion 1979, a completely unreleased, unknown album by the great Tiny Tim. And that's going to be on, of course, cassette and CD, and I'm sure 8-track as well, because why not? Okay, we had an interruption, but it looks like I'm back on, which is just as well because I'm about to sign off anyway. Completely unreleased, unknown Tiny Tim album from 1979 on all formats, including vinyl. I wasn't sure about pressing it on vinyl because vinyl's expensive. It's time consuming, and if you're going to be honest, Tiny Tim is not the greatest seller in the world, but it's Tiny Tim. Having Tiny Tim on your label is a prestige mark. So I think that I'm going to let the year roll on a little bit and do more record shows and do more selling on the Discogs and the eBay and the Bandcamp and try to get a good little nut going so I can press it on vinyl. Because really, it should be on vinyl. Even if it's just like 100 copies, it deserves to be on vinyl. So that's the commitment that I've made. And, with that pointed stick coming at me through the cages of the bar, I got to act. So sometime this year, Love Potion 1979, along with Howard Finster, along with David Kendrick's Quintaphenia, along with whatever else I was talking about, Peter Tork, James Lee Stanley, and quite likely a lot more as the inspiration strikes. And having you guys tuning in every week to Tent Talks Tunes gives me the inspiration to keep doing it. I see lots of comments there. I've seen lots of hearts and thumbs ups and whatnot, and I'm going to log in later and check them all out and keep the conversation going virtually. So thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I love doing this every 168 hours on the Facebook and having it forever on my YouTube channel. So that's it. I do hope to be back in about 167 hours time. Until we meet again, this is indeed Malcontent saying so long from the Tar Heel State.